Lewiston City Council regular meeting to order. The time and place is advertised. It's August 11th, 2025, 6 p.m. Lewiston City Library. Our next order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance. If you'd please stand and join us in reciting our pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Council. Thank you, members of the public. Councilor Schroeder has asked and has received an excused absence for tonight's meeting, so she will not be joining us. Next, move to our citizen comments. This is an opportunity for individuals to comment on agenda items or other matters they wish to bring to the council's attention, excluding those scheduled for a public hearing, as there may not be another opportunity to comment. Once an agenda item is addressed, individuals are encouraged to speak at this time. Individuals are encouraged to discuss operational issues in advance with the mayor. In consideration of others wishing to speak, commentary is limited to 3 minutes. Also, your Lewiston City Council pledges to practice and promote civility within the governing body, respecting others' views and their viewpoints. If we have any citizens that would like to offer comments tonight, we have a standing microphone in the middle of the floor. We just need your name and your city of residence. If you're here for any of the public hearings, please hold those comments until then. So, do we have citizen comments tonight, general comments? Okay, we're going to keep moving. All right, thank you. Next up, we have presentations. Item A, Fire Department Badge Pinning Ceremony, recognition of Fire Department personnel for recent promotions, followed by a badge pinning ceremony. And I would like to invite our Fire Chief, Greg Reitmeyer, and Chief, turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council. Greg Reitmeyer, Fire Chief. It's my pleasure this evening to be before you in a wonderful, exciting time in some of the members of our department's career to be here tonight. We have two groups. One is paramedic pinning, and then the other group is new firefighters that we've just recently hired and trained. So we're excited for their families. We're excited for them. The Lewiston Fire Department is a department that utilizes a very unique staffing model. It's called a constant staffing model. And the only way that you do that is that you have to have additional people. You either hire overtime or you have a program like we have with our reserves. It's a very unique program and it's a great stewardship for our city. We would have to spend roughly a little over $2 million a year to hire 16 more firefighters to do what our reserves do, along with our members that work extra hours. So it's really a unique program and it does a great job for the city. The paramedics tonight that are getting pinned, that's a promotional opportunity that they're moving from EMT to paramedic. And that's roughly 1,200 hours of classroom time and another couple hundred hours of supervised clinical time in order to achieve that level and that rank of paramedic and the responsibility that goes along with treating other people. So we're excited to see that happening. And this is the last class that came through our LCSC college program. And now we have a new partnership with Idaho State University at LCSC College that's teaching a remote paramedic program that's also in Idaho Falls and Meridian. And so they go to class 2 days a week on an online big screen like this. Everybody is in their classrooms together, and then they do lab time with their exciting things happening in our community, a great partnership with the college. As we see, this group of recruits has several college students that graduated the program there and moved on to their working time to apprentice with the department. So we're really excited about that. We'll get that started tonight. We're going to bring up our reserve firefighters, Nate Dalton, Travis Harris, Jesse Lezek gang, and Xander London, please. I state your name. Solemnly swear.
Do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully perform the duties and responsibilities of the position of courage, conviction, and compassion. In accordance with the policies, procedures, rules and regulations of the Lewiston Fire Department in for the city of Lewiston, county of Nez Perce, state of Idaho, that's to my knowledge, skill, and ability. Help me God. All right, if you guys would step over here, and if we could have Nate is going to be pinned tonight by his spouse, Olivia Dalton. Well, tradition that we have here, behind every firefighter that spends the time it takes to study and to get hired, to get all their certifications, and also to promote up to paramedic or any promotion. Countless hours at home by yourself, without your spouse, or worse, with them, and their littles are there, and all they want to do is play with their parents and do things, and they're not able to. And so we recognize the fire service, this is a teamwork event, and it doesn't get done without the team being part of that. So, all right. Next is Travis, and he will be pinned by his wife, Rachel. The whole crowd, okay. That's a good gang. They all pin you, though, you're gonna leak. There we go. Yeah. We'll see how the net. It's going to be pinned by his father, Carl. And mom?
Yeah.
Oh, there we go. Megan.
Yes.
Wonderful. All right. Let's see. Tonight we have Xander London, and Xander's being pinned by a very special person, this Travis Michael Bus. You might recognize the name from before. Chief Michael Bus was my mentor and previous chief at Lewiston Fire Department. When he left me, he went on to wonderful things with our partner with the college, and he took over as dean of the fire administration over at the college, and has done amazing things, starting with like 6 or 8 in our first 6 in the first class. And this year, 2030. So in 2 years, a great program. And so really seeing what we can do in the Valley and the great kind of the quality of people that we have here and that are coming from all around the inland Northwest now to get their fire science degree. So Chief, and we'll see his first proteges here. right, and now if we could please have Joe Anderson come up. Joe is one of our new paramedics, finally completed their rigors.
I wasn't sure if we were all.
Oh, yeah, well. Got the whole crew. The pin for the paramedic is a medical caduce that signifies that they are a That's not a happy face.
Oh, my daughter is my mom. Don't wanna be- Okay.
All right, next. Next, paramedic Joe Evangelo, sorry. Joe is being pinned by Emily, his fiance. There you go. Paramedic Turner Webb is being pinned by Nikki. Mr. Mayor, Council, thank you very much. We appreciate your time tonight.
Thank you. Thank you, Chief. That young man, it looked like he was trying to teach us stop, drop, and roll. He was pretty good at it. Yeah. Counselors, before everybody's going to leave, but gentlemen, before we leave, I'll just open it up to the council, see if they would like to add anything tonight before we move on. Counselor Forsman?
Congratulations to all of you and your hard work. And if it weren't for you guys, we wouldn't have the safe community we have. So thank you for all the work you do and the families that put in the time. Have a great evening.
Counselor Wright?
Thank you for your service and congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, council, our next item is item 4B, Palisades and Southport Study. Presentation of the Palisades and Southport Study and addendum to the 2019 Water Facilities Master Plan. We have with us here tonight our city engineer, Luke Antonich. If you have questions, Luke, please introduce yourself for the record. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. My name is Luke Antonich. I'm the city engineer. I am just here to introduce Ryan Rader this evening. The Palisades and Southport study was undertaken starting in 2023, and they've been working to wrap up some questions we had regarding these two zones in the water system. Merrick, who Ryan worked for, has helped us with a number of projects over the years, and we appreciate their help on this one. This study was identified as a need from the 2019 master plan. And so operating off of that, Merrick undertook a deeper dive into these two zones. I asked Ryan this morning if he could condense the presentation he had prepared into about 5 minutes for you. So he's taking a 65-page report and work that they've been working on since 2023. And he's going to try to give you the bullet points very quickly. With that, I'll turn it over to Ryan and let him get started.
Thank you, Luke. Ryan, if you please introduce yourself for the record, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Yes, I will. Thank you, Luke. My name is Ryan Rader. I'm with Merrick here in Lewiston. As you mentioned, I've been working with the city since 2023 on this. I don't know how do I go forward? So primarily working with Alana and Brian in the water department. Again, from Merrick, it was myself, Dr. Eric Coates, and myself, Herman, in our Lewiston office that worked on this. I'm going to go quickly. I had originally about 40 slides to go through this. For those of you that were here back in 2019 when I presented on this, it was almost an hour. So we're going to try to do it in 5 minutes. Please stop me if you have questions or want me to expand on something. So the goal of today's meeting, so really this is a planning effort. This meeting is actually a requirement because the city actually paid, part of this was paid for through a grant from the state revolving loan fund. The intent is to really get public input on the plan and then answer any questions that you guys have and get buy-in. So what you're looking at here is kind of the system as a whole. There's really 3 primary locations that are part of the water system. As Luke mentioned, back in 2019, we did a system-wide facility plan. This one really looks at the small area in the red, kind of that red boundary down there. There's actually 3 kind of primary pressure zones that we were looking at, and I'll go over those very quickly. Okay, so this is one. You guys probably recognize this. This is the Lewiston Airport and kind of the surrounding industrial zone. This is called the Southport Zone. And it's really the need out there was to identify areas for improved operational efficiency and eliminate single points of failure. And the primary, while there were several projects that were identified as needs, kind of smaller stuff, this was really the big takeaway in this zone was currently you have a single larger diameter transmission main. You can see it there in the middle that crosses the runway. represents a single point of failure, and a failure in that, could have pretty wide-ranging impacts. So the primary alternative for this one, alternative one, is shown in red. That's a new 16-inch ductile iron main that kind of loops around the end of the runway and ties in to an existing main down on the road just west of the runway there. So the gist of this, recommended alternatives coming out of that Southport transmission main alt 1, you can see there, it's a fairly large capital expenditure. The others that are a part of what we investigated is some improvements to the booster station that feeds that zone and a pressure reducing station for the Brighton Canyon Golf Course. They receive pretty high pressures down there, so a way to improve that. All right, moving on to this zone. So this is, you can see the industrial facility there to the left side of the screen. That's the Kinetic Group facility down, that's Brighton Canyon Road, you can see, and the Fleshman Bridge there. This was kind of an area where the operations staff didn't have a firm understanding of kind of how the zones operate together. And through this, we actually identified and really put a boundary around a new pressure zone, and allowed the staff to really take a close look at how to better serve these zones and provide additional redundancy and reliability. So some recommendations on that. There's really fairly minor, but there's quite a few operational changes that staff made. But these two recommendations in particular are, again, just to kind of provide some additional redundancy and reliability, kind of interzonal connections, if you will. So getting water from one zone to another, fairly modest improvements to make a lot of benefit to the city. Lastly, the last study area we were looking at was the Country Club and Palisades zone. So you can recognize those. The little pink one on the bottom of the screen to the south is the Country Club. The two to the north are called North and South Palisades. Really there was two objectives to this, to kind of look similar to the last one, look at how those zones operate together. And then also through the 2019 master plan, it was identified that there's pretty significant corrosion on some of the facilities in that Palisades and Country Club zones. And so one of the, and this kind of, you don't need to know this, but push comes to shove, what we came up with is that the soil that was used for backfill and when a lot of those mains were installed was actually either corrosive or moderately corrosive. And you've been seeing issues with corrosion on saddle taps, on valve bonnet bolts, and all that type of stuff. So quite a few leaks there that staff have to go out and repair frequently. And really, this one is around. We didn't see any real major capital improvements other than just these. We would call them like the depreciation replacements or replacement of these service lines, saddle taps over time. There's about 400 of them out there, roughly $5,000 a piece to replace. And so if you look at replacing those over a 10-year interval, we suggested that you guys consider budgeting an annual amount to start replacing those service saddles. All right, I went through that quick. That's the technical side of this. The last piece of it, I'll just go over a quick schedule. So you can see here is holding a public meeting. We're in the middle of a public comment period. So if there's any public that wants to make comments outside of this meeting, the plan is available on the city's website. Please email comments, and then we'll get all that incorporated into a final report. And in the end, we will ask council, or staff will ask council, to adopt the findings of the facility plan. Would be the next step. And then sometime, once that happens, then we can go back and finalize the facility plan with all of the information related to council adoption. And big thanks to all the city staff. Are awesome to work with. Really, really enjoyed working on this project with them. How'd I do? Any questions?
Brian, you did a great job. Council, any questions? There's no official action needed tonight, but if you have questions about the project, Brian, while he's here. I have a quick question. What kind of pressures are we talking about?
Statutorily, water systems are supposed to be between 40 and 80 PSI. They'll allow up to 100, kind of under slightly abnormal conditions. You're seeing there's some spots out around the Southport zone, both out by the new animal shelter and near Bryden Canyon that are 160, even higher than that at times. So pretty high pressures out there.
When you put a pressure reducing valve in there, what are you reducing it to?
So typically on something like that, if we're not seeing a lot of topography drop downhill, usually you're going to reduce it to somewhere in that 40 to 80 range. Basically, whatever the reduction it takes to kind of stay within that 40 to 80 normal. So in that case, probably reduce it to 80-ish. They like the high pressure out there for the irrigation.
Council questions? Councilor Spicklemeyer?
I can't remember which zone you talked about, but in the picture it showed a line crossing the airport. Is that already existing?
Yes, so that blue line is the only current feed between the source of supply for that zone and the industrial area south of the airport. That's correct.
Hopefully that's not one that has to be cleaned out because of corrosive soil, huh?
Not that we're aware of, and I believe that's actually a plastic main, so it should be fairly good. But again, it's in a pretty precarious location, and there's a single main across there. So
Well, thank you very much. Important project, a lot of work to do. Luke, thank you too for your team and all the work you're doing on that. Appreciate you being here tonight.
thank you guys.
Council, next we'll move to Roman numeral 5, public hearings and related action items. The first item is A, public hearing on fiscal year 2025 budget amendments, accepting testimony on a proposed amendment to the fiscal year 2025 budget to add unanticipated revenues received during the fiscal years in the amount of $11,103,220 and authorizing their expenditure. This is an action item. And we have our finance director with us here tonight, Amy Gordon. Amy, welcome. Please introduce yourself for the record. The floor is yours.
Thank you,
What-
Mayor, members of council, Amy Gordon, City Treasurer. Our first public hearing this evening is the budget amendments for our current year budget, which is fiscal year 2025. Sent out previously to council and then included in the packet for tonight's meeting is we created a special document this year on the budget amendments. And it goes through each specific amendment and provides some additional detail regarding those amendments. So I'm not going to walk through each and every amendment like we did last year, but there are a few I do want to provide some additional comments on.
Amy, before we begin this, let me just explain the hearing process for members of the public that may be here, want to offer testimony. I will open the public hearing. We will have a staff presentation from Director Gordon. We'll accept testimony from the public if there is any. Reminder to the council, no additional evidence or testimony may be received once the public hearing is closed. So this is your time. This is the time to ask any questions you might have with the public, applicants, and or staff, and then I will close the public hearing. So with that, Director Gordon, I'm going to open the public hearing and turn the floor over to you.
Thank you. Included in the amendments for this year is one that's regarding airport improvements. This is an annual amendment we do each year. I always like to explain this. It's a little bit confusing to some. The city and the county are joint owners of the airport, and the airport is managed by the Joint Airport Authority. Any improvements that are made to the airport, the city needs to recognize their share of that improvement to our asset in our financial report at the end of the year. It's a entry that our auditors have us make. So every year we work with the airport management. We get an update on where they're at on their capital expenditures for the year. And then we do an amendment for the city's share, 1/2 portion of those improvements, so that at the end of the year, we can record a contribution from public sources as a revenue and then a capital project expenditure. We're not receiving any money from the airport and we're not spending any money on the airport. But what this allows us to do is have the budget appropriation to make the entry to have that expenditure on our books. And then we have an amendment this year on the list for our workers' compensation fund. The workers' compensation policy has had a high claim on it for the past several years. And part of our coverage, we have a stop loss coverage, which once we hit a certain threshold of claim amounts, our stop loss carrier will start reimbursing us for all of our claim expenditures. Our stop loss threshold is $750,000. So during this fiscal year, we hit that limit. So now every time there's an expense check written regarding that claim, we receive a reimbursement back from the stop loss carrier. Those checks are written by our third-party administrator, and they're also the ones receiving that reimbursement. But what we want to do on our books is record that expense at the gross amount and then record the revenue that equals that. So as those stop loss reimbursements come in, we'll reclassify those to revenue and then record the expenditure that they paid for. In our sanitation budget, we have a budget amendment this year for excess hauling. And this year we have just experienced a volume of excess hauling that is exceedingly high compared to prior years. So when we set the budget for the current year, we did not predict that we would have this much in excess hauling. So there's an amendment to provide some additional appropriation for the related expenditures for that excess hauling, as well as to capture the additional revenue that we collect off those excess haul trips into the transfer station. Then we have our downtown water transmission main replacement project. That's a project that is being funded from ARPA dollars. When the city received the ARPA funds, we researched to see if we could earn interest on that. The U.S. Treasury Department did allow recipients of ARPA to earn interest on those. They just required that the interest earnings go back into the same purpose that we designated our funds for. So we've been keeping a track on how much we're earning. And when we wrote the 25 budget, we did the best we could at estimating how much funds we would have available throughout the entire year to complete out this project, but it was just an estimate. This again is another estimate of where we think we'll be at year end on additional interest earnings beyond that amount. So we will amend the current year budget to allow us to spend those funds, and likely we'll have to do another amendment next year to capture any additional revenues that would come from interest during those first 3 months of the year. The project will be completed before the end of the calendar year, but it will likely run into the first part of this next fiscal year. So 26, if we do have another amendment, that would be like the final truing up the numbers, and we would be then done with the project. Those are the only amendments I have to highlight for council tonight. Of course, you have the full list of amendments, and I would gladly answer any other questions that you would have on that list.
Director Gordon, let me ask if there's any testimony from the public tonight first. Hearing none, council, do you have questions for Director Gordon? Councilor Spickelmeyer.
Thank you, Mayor. So, Director, just looking at this, kind of just as for the public's information, you look at the amendments that came out and the revenues used. It looks to me like the revenues used for all of these were around, most of them were grants, monies moved forward from previous years. I don't see any of them in here that used new property tax dollars to pay for any of these amendments. Is that correct?
No, we wouldn't be able to do that. Once you levy your taxes, you've levied them. You can't levy additional taxes.
Thank you.
Councilors, other questions, further questions? Councilor Wright?
Probably just the big ones, other big ones really quick. So the wastewater improvement project, Titan and East Orchard sewer expansion, phase 3. If you can give just a brief reason for those.
And I apologize because I should have actually touched on that. A lot of our amendments are the result of capital projects, just the timing of them. You plan to do them in 25, you don't get them done, so you've got to roll a portion of it over into the next year. So then we'll come back in that subsequent year and ask to amend the budget to carry those funds into that budget. And at that point, it's reserves because we're carrying forward revenues that were going to support that project in the prior year. The wastewater one was a big one. I wish, well, Luke's here, he might be able to help me out. But that, last year when we bid out that project, we had changed the project, and that year it became a bigger project. And at that time, we knew we were basically marrying money from 24 and 25 to complete that project. So what didn't get done in 24 carried into 25. So we had budget planned in 25 to spend on this project, as well as the amount that carried forward from 24. So we knew that was going to be a multi-year project, and that we were going to be using our pipeline replacement money in both fiscal years. We have an annual amount that we put towards pipeline replacements. But in last year, we amended the budget for this project as well, because we had to amend to put the dollars in the budget to award the contract. And then we were only able to complete a little bit of the project. And now we're amending to carry forward the $24 into 25.
Perfect. All right, thank you.
Counselor Spickelmeyer.
Thank you. And kind of a carry on to the same type of a question here. On here, our fleet, I see here we had a 2024 transit bus and a 23 street sweeper. And so those are amended now. It's because we approved them in previous years, and this is when we actually did the purchase for them.
Yes, fleet, we've had some issues for several years now where there's such a delay in the manufacturing of the equipment. We'll place the order in a fiscal year, and then it's another year or 2 years before we receive that equipment. So in this year, you're seeing an equipment that we ordered and signed the contract in 2023, another one that we ordered, signed the contract in 2024, but we don't actually write the check for them until we receive them. So we amend the budget to bring the budget forward so that we can then write the check.
But the fundings were already approved prior.
They were already in the approved budgets for those years.
Thank you.
Counselors, I don't see any further questions. So with that, I'm going to close the public hearing. Thank you, Amy. Councilors, next up, we have item B, first reading of ordinance 4952, considering amending ordinance 4923, the annual appropriation ordinance for the fiscal year beginning October 1, 2024, and ending September 30, 2025, appropriating additional monies that are to be received in the sum of $11,103,220. And again, council, if you have further questions, our Finance Director, Amy Gordon, is here. Otherwise, I would entertain a motion to approve. Council President Kleberg.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I can make a motion to approve the first reading of ordinance 4952.
Been moved by Council President Kleberg, seconded by Councilor Speckelmeyer to approve the first reading of ordinance number 4952. Is there discussion or amendments? Hearing none, those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Council. Clerk Rocky.
Approving the first reading of ordinance the ordinance of the city of Lewiston, amending ordinance number 4923, annual appropriation ordinance for the fiscal year beginning October 1, 2024, and ending September 30, 2025, appropriating additional monies that are to be received by the city of Lewiston, Idaho, in the sum of $11,103,220, providing an effective date.
Thank you, Clerk Rocky. Council, next we'll move to Roman numeral 5C, public hearing on the proposed budget for the fiscal year ended 2026, accepting testimony in the proposed budget and appropriation ordinance for the fiscal year commencing October 1, 2025, and ending September 30, 2026. This is an action item. Again, we have our Finance Director, Amy Gordon, with us here tonight. I will open the public hearing. Staff will present to us. We will accept testimony from the public. And then, councilors, as a reminder, no additional evidence or testimony may be received once the public hearing is closed. So this is the time to ask any questions you may have of the public applicant and/or staff. After that, I will close the public hearing. So I will declare the public hearing open and turn it over to our finance director, Amy Gordon. Welcome, Amy.
Thank you, Mayor. Amy Gordon, City Treasurer. Here before you right now is the proposed budget for fiscal year 2026. That would be our budget that would start on October 1st, 2025 and carry us through to September 30th, 2026. I just kind of want to review our process that we've followed so far. Earlier this spring, we had our first work session. Well, one of the things we were asked to do this year is to kind of pare down the work sessions. And to do that, what we did is we just focused in on the areas that drive growth in the budget. So in work session number 1, we focused on personnel cost, our internal service funds, and then other labor or contractual obligations of the city. Personnel cost, in the 2026 budget, we have a 2.5% COLA. That's consistent to the labor contracts that are currently in place. We've updated our PERSI rates. The PERSI rates actually went down this year. They went down as of July 1st this year, and then that will carry into next year with no planned PERSI rates, just to make that. And then we had a 1.5% increase on our health insurance premiums. That 1.5% on health insurance premiums equates to about a $75,000 additional cost to the city. The internal service funds are our funds within the city that support other departments throughout the city. They facilitate services for both our property tax supported departments as well as our enterprise funds, which are user rate supported funds. So with increases in personnel costs such as COLA, health insurance, that then increases the cost of the internal service fund. So they'll then adjust their rates to make certain that they're adjusting to, we try to be a break even on the operations side of our internal service funds. And then we made some other adjustments in the budget for contractual obligations that we were aware where there would be likely increases in 2026. One of those was for the prosecution contract with the county. Jennifer provided both the city council as well as our county commissioners an update on that contract during the joint work session. We made the adjustment within our budget. So we watch for other contracts like the animal shelter contract. I know council will be receiving a presentation on a contract update there. We made an adjustment for that in the budget. Another area where we saw a significant increase in our budget is in our commercial and liability coverage. So that's gone up another 20% this year. Unfortunately, that's just a cost that we wish we could control more, but it is seems to be almost outside of our control right now. So we've adjusted for what our agents are telling us to expect for an insurance premium, and then we will likely know about October, November what those premiums are. Work session number 2, we went through capital projects. And just to remind council, we didn't make any changes to the funding of the capital fund, meaning they're not receiving any more or any less in property taxes in 2026. What's in the proposed budget is the same amount they received in fiscal year 2025, the current fiscal year. The enterprise funds, Dustin went through with council and presented all the projects that they had in the proposed budget for 2026. He then followed that with a discussion on rates and potential rate increases. He looked to council for direction on what to do with those rates. And based off that feedback, we finalized the budget there. Council will be having a public hearing on those rates on September 8th, I believe. So as long as those rates pass as discussed during that work session, the capital portion of the budget would proceed as budgeted. If the rates were less, they would just adjust for that and what they plan to spend in capital. I did want to also mention specifically for the public's benefit, we do have some budget documents that are on our website. There was a budget document inserted in the newspaper on August 3rd. That is also, though, published on our website. And then there's another budget document that's on the website that is a little bit more expanded in detail. Towards the back of that document it outlines all the capital projects that are in the proposed 2026 budget. So I'm not going to go through what those capital projects are, just because they are itemized in that document that's on the website. And if anyone has any trouble finding the document, they are welcome to call City Hall and they can ask for me directly, Amy Gordon, and we will get them the links for those documents. And I think that we might even on the insert that was in the newspaper, that they're available at city facilities as well. So if you're not a subscriber to the paper, you can pick them up at the library, at City Hall. They're available there as well. So we also then work through all the requests we received through the departments and look at what we can and can't fund. We received 8 different requests related to personnel costs this year. Funded 4 of the 8. I have those listed. I won't go through all the requests tonight because, again, council's been provided copies of all those requests. They have all that information. I might just provide some comments on some of the requests. With the personnel request, a couple of comments I want to provide is that stormwater technician, that would be adding a position to the city's personnel. The reason that position's up there at a cost of $15,000 is because currently the stormwater fund utilizes street technicians to do the stormwater work for them, and then they reimburse the streets department for the use of that labor. This current year, that's about $60,000. So the additional cost for them to hire an employee to do that same work would be an additional cost of $15,000. So it's work that's currently being done by the streets department. The canine handler with, we have a canine officer to be compliant to FLSA. They receive some additional compensation because they're caring for their canine 24/7. It lives with them. So to be compliant to FLSA rules, there's some additional compensation that goes with that position. And as council recalls, we added the second canine this year. So that would cover that additional cost. And then the construction inspector, what that would be a premium pay to an existing employee who could perform those inspections in-house rather than contracting out to an outside firm to do the inspections. This is specific to wastewater and the planned capital projects that we have upcoming in the next couple of fiscal years. This is the next two, actually I'll say the next 3 slides, I believe, are the rest of the funded requests. These are only the funded requests that are listed here. Outside of personnel, we received 45 requests from departments. And the proposed budget has 24 of the 45 requests funded. Another comment I'll provide for the benefit of the public is this presentation will be added to the agenda packet tomorrow so that council and the public would have access to this information as well. Again, I won't be providing comment on everyone. There's 2 up there that have an asterisk beside them. One is the very first one that says patrol training, and then further down the list under transportation, there's a new hire training. These have an asterisk noted beside them because we partially funded them. The request was for more, but we funded a portion of the request. A couple of comments I want to provide is on transit, the very last request listed there of the $69,000. That would be the city's match to utilize the remaining grant funds that would pay for the relocation of the transit offices from the Bell Building here to the west of us down to our community center, which would put the transit offices where the new transit hub was constructed this year. And then also there's a request, it's the fourth one from the bottom, or I'm sorry, it's the third one from the bottom where it says transportation utilities. That budget request is for the additional utility cost for the street lighting. So that's just for street lighting only. And that's just to cover the costs that the utilities have gone up the last couple of years with the Vista utility rate increases. Does council have any questions on this list at this time?
Counselor Forsman?
How many of these are out of reserves, or if any?
None of them.
None of them? Okay. Thank you.
And we will talk about reserves a little bit later in the presentation, but yeah, none of these requests are being funded from reserves. This is the requests that are a blend of property tax funded as well as enterprise funding because they relate to our internal service funds. ISS, that stands for Information Systems and Security. It's our IT department. One thing to note about these requests is these are driven really by the departments, the users of their services, more so than the department themselves. Information Systems and Security, the reason it's Information Systems and Security is because they've taken on a lot of additional duties over the last 3-4 years, which include security of city facilities, that's the door lock mechanisms, cameras, all the security related to our facilities that wasn't originally part of their duties and responsibilities, but the last few years it's become their responsibility. And as you probably have seen, there's been a lot of enhancements in those areas. We really approach those projects as what creates efficiencies and cost savings throughout the city. An example I can provide council of that is this past year, they were able to make some improvements at Fenton Gym that allow the public who have reservations to access that facility through a keypad. We no longer have to have a staff member come in on the weekends to meet them at the facility, to let them in, to utilize the facility. We have the cameras there that can provide a video of, anything that's going on during those rentals. And it just has created efficiencies and reduced staff time of our recreation employees. Enterprise funds, we have some increases in the budget there. The sanitation increase there is related to potential contract adjustments with Sunshine. I know Dustin has brought the subject up with council that they're looking for some contract adjustments. Council hasn't made any decisions on this, but we've planned for that in the budget. The approach that we took with that is to partially fund any potential contract adjustments through a rate increase as well as utilizing reserves. So when those discussions come up, if council, if the impact is less on this, it just means that we would utilize less reserves in funding those contract adjustments. Water has seen some increases in their operations that they just haven't been able to absorb within their existing budget. The utilities with the new plant in place are a lot more than we had predicted. And then we've put a lot into enhancing the security of both our water plant as well as our wastewater plant. We have systems in place that help us monitor and ensure our systems are operating correctly. And we've put some security and enhancements on those systems. We've probably all seen stories throughout the nation where water systems are getting hacked. And so that's the type of security we're talking. It protects the system from being penetrated from a hacker and messing with our water distribution. Okay, so let's get into property taxes. Council saw a slide similar to this during the third work session when we talked about funding the budget. And on that slide that you saw that night, it was really those first 3 columns. And it was presented a little bit different where you could see like with cemetery, library and transportation, they've pretty much utilized their reserves to the limit we're comfortable with. So it kind of showed council like if this is what we would need to give them in additional property taxes to ensure that we're not dipping below an uncomfortable level of reserves. And if we don't, this is where those reserves are looking. What I've done here is I've taken what our 2025 property tax budget is. So that's that top line highlighted in gray. And then I've made some adjustment to it to get it back to what the true property tax base is for each one of those funds. In the current year, we reallocated some of general funds, property tax dollars to some other funds so that they could fund some one-time capital needs. We also had a judgment levy in our property tax levy in this current year, which we'll talk more about that in another slide or two. So I just kind of made those adjustments. So when you're comparing the 25, when you compare the 25 property taxes to the proposed 26, you see that true growth without those, one-time reallocations kind of muddying the waters. So with library, we talked about this during that third work session. They've been leaning on their reserves for many years to balance out their budget. That's down to, kind of the minimum level we like to see reserves. So we're proposing that they receive a property tax increase this year. The same with transportation. This amount's a little bit higher than what you saw during the third work session. And the reason it's higher is because we did fund some of their requests in the proposed budget. In addition, we worked in the increases from the health insurance premium rates. They weren't in the budget at that time. Transit, the 70,000 is the budget request that we talked about a few slides ago to provide the match to the grant to fund the relocation of transit offices from Bell Building to Community Center. And then the general fund has an increase of 850,000, which I do want to provide some comments on that because it's a big number, so it needs some discussion. When we look at the general fund, that's we provide services, so we're very heavy on personnel costs. So in the current budget year, so this year, our personnel budget in the general fund is approximately 23 million. So we know in 2026, we have a 2.5% COLA, as well as increases to our health insurance premium. The majority of employees will receive a step increase. So I think it's reasonable to think on a $23 million budget, maybe a 5% increase in personnel costs, that equates to about 1.1 to 1.2 million. So we've gone through and we've made all the adjustments that we can to minimize the impact as much as possible. Also remember that in the general fund, we're funding 3 new positions in the proposed budget, the 3 new officers. That's a cost of just right under 300,000. So when you kind of do the reconciliation of all that, you're looking at about 500,000 to 600,000 on a budget increase that could potentially have been in excess of $1 million just looking at personnel costs alone. But we've gone through and we made as many adjustments as we can to alleviate as much of that increase as possible. We account for every position that there's going to be turnover in, every vacancy. We completely rework that personnel budget so that we can capture as much as a savings from that turnover in personnel as we can. So just take a little look at how this works when we move forward our base budget from the prior year. So our tax levy last year was 24 million, just right under 24.2 million. Included in that levy was a judgment levy of 67,000. So our true property tax base that we can increase taxes off is 24.12 million. I want to talk about that judgment levy a little bit because we have another one in 2026. What that is related to utility properties within the city limits. So the utilities are assessed at the state level. So our local county assessor doesn't assess the utility values, it's done at the state level. And those utility companies challenged those assessed values. They were successful in their challenge. And so what that means is the state overvalued those properties. They've readjusted the values, but now the local taxing districts have to, basically, you're refunding the property taxes you received on those higher values. So that is what the 67,000 was in the current year budget. And in the 2026 budget, it's 112,000. The 67,000 was Avista Gas, I believe. I think it was Avista Gas. Lumen might have been in there as well. The 112,000 is Avista Utilities. So what the state allows us to do is levy for that outside our regular levy limits. So that's what that 112,000 refers to. We didn't do anything wrong. The county didn't do anything wrong. It's just a overvaluation of the utility properties within the city limits. So of the 1.1 million, that's growth in our budget, there's new construction and annexation of 205,000. And that leaves an increase in the levy of 940,000. 724 approximately would come from the amount that you can increase your base budget. And the remaining 216,000 would come from foregone taxes. So here's a snapshot of our reserves, what's being funded from reserves. So we have some legal fees. We're providing some additional money for deferred maintenance projects, our community contracts. We've got some additional one-time funding for workers' compensation to reimburse that fund for some of those high claim costs we've incurred over the last 3 years. The additional funding for the fleet replacement fund, and then the operation support that the airport requested of the 330,000. That's a total of 1.2 million of unassigned reserves. I also noted it just so it reconciles back to our budget documents. We're also, in our budget, we've included 40,000 of a restricted reserve. That is a special fund that only the police department can utilize. What that is a donation that was made by a private individual. And they put very specific restrictions on how they can use that fund. It can only be used by the police department, and it can only be used within the boundaries of what the donor requested. So at the end of our fiscal year 2024, based on our audit report, we had 10.3 million of unassigned reserves. We had planned to use 1.2 million in the current year, which is about 14 days of cash on hand. And in the 26 proposed budget, we have a similar amount of 1.25 million, again, about 14 days cash on hand. And that would take the city's reserves down to 88 days, so right about that 90-day rule that we try to maintain. And this would also answer why we did not fund any of the requests using reserves. Just felt like there weren't the reserves there to do that. During the third work session, you saw a similar slide that showed you at that time what was included in the budget versus what had not yet been programmed into the budget. So when we were talking about what the budget was costing us at that point in time, I still had a little bit of work to do. So on the right-hand side of the slide, there were red X's down that column because we hadn't incorporated those costs into the budget yet. So we now have the health insurance premium increase included in the budget. We've got the support for the airport included in the budget. The reason department requests are yellow is because we have some included, some aren't. And then we've factored that utility judgment into the budget. I just wanted to review kind of where we're at. Tonight, August 11th, we're having our first reading after this public hearing. We will do 3 separate readings of the budget. We will also do 3 separate readings of the amendments that we talked about earlier this evening. So next week, August 18th, during that second reading, we have nothing else planned for that night. It is purely budget. So I would really be looking to council for any thoughts they had on amending the budget that night. I'd like to work through as much of that as we can, just to try to avoid amending the budgets during that third reading. It gets a little bit stressful, I would say, to get it amended on the fly that night. We'll do our best if council so chooses to amend the budget during that third reading. However, we did reserve next Monday night to be a budget-only night so that we have plenty of time to dedicate to the budget that night. And then on the 25th, we would have the third reading with the adoption thereafter. And for any comments?
Thank you, Director Gordon. Let's see if there's any testimony from the public tonight. Council questions, Councilor Spicklemeyer?
Thank you, Mayor. So, Director?
Citizens comments.
Doug, welcome. Please introduce yourself for the record.
Doug Havens, Lewiston, Idaho, also county commissioner. I really debated about commenting tonight because really I haven't seen your budget. This is the most I've seen of it. I don't have the book or anything yet, but I did take a few pictures I found interesting. First off, I wanted to thank the mayor. For some of you that maybe don't know, the mayor come and talked to the county commissioners. Was it just last week? I think it was last week. And it concerned something called the road and bridge tax. And it's not a very good system for the cities to raise money for their roads, because in order for the cities to get money, the county needs to levy a tax or an amount, or no, a tax actually. And we didn't want to. We've worked very hard not to. We have other funding sources. But we did consider it, Mr. Mayor. We did consider it. But we were so far along in the budget process, it was really going to foul things up. So we did not. So I'm sorry to say you're not getting any money from that levy. But we will consider it next year. We've already planned on that. But I mean, the county has worked for years to get in the position that we are now. We don't have to raise taxes. We don't have to take foregone money. We can pay all our bills. We can even fund the new courthouse. We're adding positions. We're doing several of the things like you're doing, but we don't have to raise taxes. And so it's taken so long to get there, and some tough cuts along the way, but we're pretty proud of that. I've never met the new counselor, so I hope to do that sometime. Congratulations and good luck. Some of you, I want to point out something to you. When you're looking for funding, I don't hear much talk here. I barely saw it recognized up on one of the slides, and that is the money that urban renewal diverts from the taxing entities and uses towards projects. You should talk about that more. There's millions of dollars being diverted. Now, are the projects good? Some of them. Yeah, some not good. But it's kind of disgraceful when a sitting elected official on the URA board that wants to have a discussion about how a certain project is funded or why we're doing things a certain way takes months to get on the agenda. In the meantime, they're spending money like crazy. 1.5 million. Can't get on the agenda because other things are more important. But the URA's legal people down in Boise said, they gave us a complete report a couple months ago. We should be doing a couple things, and we're not doing them. So why aren't we doing them? I don't know. I can't get on the agenda for a couple more months. I think it's in October. Commissioner, or Counselor Kleberg, sorry, I promoted you there. Counselor Kleberg is on the URA board. In September, we'll talk about why a bond is not getting paid off in the hopes of returning money back to the taxing entities, and why you keep funding little projects, spending the excess money that should be going to pay off the bond. It's a very confusing situation. I hope you'll have some interest in it. I'd love to talk to the new counselor about it sometime, and anybody else that's concerned. But I wish you well with your budget. I don't really have any suggestions. Sounds like Amy's done a pretty thorough job of it and explaining it too, so good luck. Thank you.
Good. Commissioner Havens, thank you for sharing, and thank you for your consideration. Councilors, further questions? Councilor Spickelmeyer.
So, thank you, Director. A couple of them, I'm going to go back a couple slides. Like on the 3 new police officers, just curious, is that number the first year, or is that going to be carry over for every year, include training, or what's that all include?
That's a really good question. So what this amount, the 286 represents, is just the starting salary for those 3 officers and the related benefits to them. So what it does not include, though, is any time you add positions at the police department, there is a cost to outfit the officer. So Officer Thompson, right? See him tonight. He's got his vest on, his cameras on, his radios. So there's a cost to that. So that doesn't include that. The chief and I had a discussion about this, if this makes it through the budget process, and he starts advertising for these positions in September. He's not going to have those positions in place on October 1. So what we would use is that salary savings between October 1 and whenever those new officers were in place to fund those equipment. But then, yes, each year there's going to be that cost plus any inflationary cost related to those positions. COLA, step increases, any changes in per se medical insurance. So they would be added positions to the budget.
Okay. Follow up.
Counselor.
And another one, prior, we talked about the increases personnel costs. That was like your very first slide, sorry. But it had our insurance, had per se, Nicola. Was it about equal last year, the increases? I know we had the same talk that all of those increased.
The cost of living adjustment in the current year, 2025, was 2.5%, which is also what's programmed in 2026. So we have language in our labor contracts regarding the CPI that we look to guide us on our COLA. And so we take an average of January, February, March. So what those CPI numbers were for January, February, March, we averaged them to determine our COLA. It was actually in excess of 2.5% as it was last year, but we have caps on the high end as well as the low end. So the way our COLA language is, our COLA would never be more than 2.5%.
Okay.
And then PERSE is set by the state PERSE board, so we have no say in PERSE rates. Those are mandated. But PERSE rates actually went down this year. So, and that was a relief because they had projected out PERSE rate increases over a 3-year period, and they were significant increases. So we were concerned from a budgetary standpoint on those. So it was nice to see those rates come down this year. Health insurance, I'm glad that we're coming back to this because I forgot to point out, we haven't had an increase in our health insurance premiums in 3 years. So this would be the first increase in 4 years. So 1.5% equates to about $75,000 citywide. Some of that's property tax funded, some of that's enterprise funds, but $75,000 increase in our health insurance in 4 years. So that's pretty good. But there is an increase this year.
Thank you.
Director, would you also please clarify for the council when you talk about COLA, PERSE, health insurance, how we're paying for those, whether it's property tax general fund dollars, or are we using other funds in addition?
Yeah, it will be a blend. So it's not all falling on property tax payers. We do have our enterprise funds that are supported by user rates. So that applies to all personnel costs, so COLA, Percy, health insurance. It's we have employees throughout the city, so that's a shared cost.
Counselor Spickelmeyer.
Thank you. And then I had already asked prior this week, this question, but the money, I think it was our share was $70,000 to move the transit office. And that isn't just a local want, that was part of an agreement for the grants and stuff was for that relocation?
I might have to phone a friend on that. I don't recall how the grant was structured.
Shannon Grow, Community Development Director. So with transit grants, you can fund capital and operating under those. Typically, the city uses operating at about 50-50, meaning 50% local match, 50% federal grant. With the capital, you can do different things. We buy buses, we buy transit stops, for example, and this is part of a package. I wouldn't say it's a requirement of the grant, but it is part of the package, if that makes sense.
So I guess, Carrie, so what's the advantage to the city for you to relocate?
Yeah, so the transit offices have been over at Old City Hall since 2009, and that building is actually a public works building, and they are running out of room. So part of the reason why transit is moving to the community center would be to allow for public works to have the space they need in Old City Hall. The parking downtown for buses is not optimal, and so the other thing is to protect the buses a little bit more with fencing behind the new transit hub for the buses to be in a more secure location. And then also, of course, you have Parks and Rec down there with their programs, senior nutrition and other programs for seniors. And so for the riders, it is central located for them to get off the bus and be able to talk to transit employees rather than talking to parks employees.
Thank you.
Thank you, Director Borough Council. Further questions? Okay, Council, I'm going to close the public hearing.
Okay, Mayor, if I could just add one more comment.
Please, before I close.
You know, Councilor Spickelmeyer referred to it. We've exchanged several emails this last week. I appreciate all the questions. Councilor Klein and I have some time set up to review questions. I just want to make certain council knows I'm available. I'm here. So if there's questions from any of you, please make certain you reach out because
Thank you, Director. Okay, Council, I will now declare the closed. Council, next we move to item D, first reading of ordinance 4950 to be termed the 2026 annual appropriation ordinance, considering appropriating sums of money authorized by law and deemed necessary for all general and special municipal purposes of the city of Lewiston for the fiscal year commencing October 1, 2025 and ending September 30, 2026. This is an action item. Again, our finance director is here. Otherwise, I would entertain a motion. Council President Kleber.
Make a motion to approve the first reading of ordinance 4950.
Second.
Been moved by Council President Kleber, seconded by Councilor Wright to approve the first reading of ordinance number 4950. Is there discussion or amendments? Council President Kleber.
Just a little discussion. And I do take the words of Director Gore to heart. This was the first reading of our budget ordinance, and next week, I do appreciate staff making it clear that next week's meeting will be strictly about the budget. So anybody that has any questions or any amendments, next week will really be the time. It is I don't want to say it's unfair to staff, but it's can create a burden when somebody comes in or counselors come in with several different amendments that they want to have changed and adjust the final budget on the third reading. I think we can take care of it all. And with that being the only business we have next week, so I am going to do my best to try and be here. Already told you there'd be rafting involved in my future, but we shall see.
Further discussion, comments? Counselor Speckelmeyer?
Thank you, Mayor. And I guess for me on this one, this would be my third budget process. And the first year, I think the city had a lot of, I'm going to call it wants and needs, and we spent a lot of money on wants, which I didn't agree. Last year, we had a lot of cost increases. We were able to balance the budget and not increase our tax levy. This year, although it looks like we're going to have to increase it, I think for me, in my eyes, when I've looked through it, that this is probably the leanest year we've had for spending. Just all the increases are mandatory increases we've had. I don't see any way around it. I think all of the department heads have taken such big cuts in the last couple of years that we're only funding things that we need, not many things that we want, things to improve our departments. So I support the budget as it is.
Thank you, Counselor. Further comments, discussion? Those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Clerk Brocky?
Approving the first reading of Ordinance 4950, an ordinance of the City of Lewiston to be termed the 2026 Annual Appropriation Ordinance, appropriating sums of money authorized by law and deemed necessary for all general and special municipal purposes of the City of Lewiston, Idaho, for the fiscal year commencing October 1, 2025, and ending September 30, 2026, and providing an effective date.
Thank you, Clerk Brocky. Council, next we'll move to Roman numeral 5E, first reading of Ordinance 4951, considering fixing and establishing the tax certification on all taxable property situate within the corporate limits of City of Lewiston for the fiscal year beginning October 1, 2025, and ending September 30, 2026, for the purpose of providing and raising monies for municipal and corporate purposes, providing for certification to the Board of County Commissioners of Nez Perce County in the amount of $25,004,240, providing a certified copy of the 2026 Annual Appropriation Ordinance to the Board of County Commissioners of Nez Perce County, Idaho, as adopted by the City of Lewiston for the 2025-2026 fiscal year. This is an action item. Again, we have our Finance Director here, Amy Gordon, with us. Otherwise, Council, I would entertain a motion. Council President Kleberg?
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve the first reading of ordinance number 4951.
Second.
Been moved by Council President Kleberg, seconded by Councilor Wright, to approve the first reading of ordinance number 4951. Excuse me, sir. Discussion or amendments? Hearing none, those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Carries. Clerk Rocky?
City of Lewiston, fixing and establishing the tax situated
Clerk Rocky, councilors, next we'll move to Roman numeral 6, consent agenda. All items on the consent agenda are considered routine by the council and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion on these issues unless the councilor so requests, in which case the item will be removed from the consent agenda and considered on the active agenda under items moved from the consent agenda. Councilors. Councilor Wright,
Move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
been moved by Councilor Wright, second by Councilor Forsman to approve the consent agenda. Clerk Rocky,
Council President Kleber,
Aye.
Counselor Wright,
Aye.
Counselor Forsman,
Aye.
Counselor Klein,
Aye.
Counselor Spiegelmeier.
Aye.
motion carries. Thank you, Council. Thank you, Clerk Rocky. Council, next we'll move to Roman numeral 7, active agenda, item A, advisory board commission appointments. Our first appointment, number 1, Disability Advisory Commission, considering the appointment of Heather Moore to a 3-year term. Council, I can tell you, first of all, that I've known Ms. Moore for several years. And she's very hardworking, very dedicated, committed to anything she applies herself to. We had the opportunity to meet at City Hall and talk about her interest in this commission, and I fully endorse her application. So with that, I move to approve the appointment of Heather Moore to a 3-year term on the Disability Advisory Commission.
Second.
Been moved by Mayor Johnson, seconded by Councilor Spiegelmeier to approve the appointment of Heather Moore to a 3-year term on the Disability Advisory Commission. Those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Heather, you are appointed. Heather's in the back. Heather, maybe stand up or wave so they know who you are if they don't know you. But thank you for being with us here tonight and showing an interest. We really appreciate it. Councilors, next we move to number 2, Library Board of Trustees, considering the appointment of Thomas Hill to a 5-year term. This is an action item. Again, the motion, and I did meet with Mr. Hill, and I don't see him out here. But a very strong candidate for the library board, and we're happy to have him. But I move to approve the appointment of Thomas Hill to a 5-year term on the Library Board of Trustees.
Second.
Been moved by Mayor Johnson, seconded by Councilor Forsman to approve the appointment of Thomas Hill to a 5-year term on the Library Board of Trustees. Those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Thank you, Council. Next, we move to number 3, Planning and Zoning Commission, considering reappointment of Cindy Bolt to a 4-year term beginning October 11, 2025. I met with Ms. Ball, and I don't see her here, but she has a lot of passion, a lot of energy for planning and zoning, and we're very fortunate to have her interest and service on this commission. So again, I fully support her, and I move to approve the reappointment of Cindy Ball to a 4-year term on the Planning and Zoning Commission beginning October 11, 2025.
Second.
Been moved by Mayor Johnson, seconded by Council President Kleber to approve the reappointment of Cindy Ball to a 4-year term on the Planning and Zoning Commission beginning on October 11, 2025. Those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Council, and congratulations to all of our new board appointees. We appreciate their service and being with us. Next, we move to item B, Resolution 2025-23, considering accepting and approving a right-of-way contract and claim for payment between Knox Land and Development LLC and the City of Lewiston, and authorizing the mayor to sign the contract and claim. This is an action item. Our Public Works Director is not here. Our city engineer, Luke Antonich, is still with us. If you have questions, Council, it's in your packet if you had a chance to review it. Otherwise, I would entertain a motion. Councilor Spiegelmeier?
Motion to approve Resolution 2025-33.
Second.
It's been moved by Councilor Spiegelmeier, seconded by Council President Kleber to approve Resolution 2025-33. Clerk Rocky?
Council President Kleber,
Aye.
Counselor Wright,
Aye.
Counselor Forsman,
Aye.
Counselor Klein, Counselor Spiegelmeier.
Aye.
Council, thank you, Clerk Rocky. Motion passes. Item C, change order number 3 and number 4, WW060 wastewater improvement project, considering approving WW060 wastewater improvement project change order number 3 in the amount of $63,832.50 and change order number 4 in the amount of $36,200 with Titan Technologies, Inc., and authorizing the mayor to sign change orders. This is an action item. Again, we have our city engineer with us, Luke Antonich. For council, I would entertain a motion. Council President Kleber.
Make a motion to approve change order number 3 in the amount of $63,832.50 and change order number 4 in the amount of $36,200 with Titan Technologies, Inc. for the Lewiston wastewater improvement project, WW060, and authorizing the mayor to sign the change orders.
Second.
Been moved by Council President Kleberg, seconded by Councilor Wright, to approve change order number 3 in the amount of $63,832.50 and change order number 4 in the amount of $36,200 with Titan Technologies, Inc. for the Lewiston wastewater improvement project, WW060, and authorizing the mayor to sign the change orders. Clerk Brockie.
Council President Kleberg,
Aye.
Councilor Wright,
Aye.
Councilor Forsman,
Aye.
Councilor Klein. Aye. Councilor Spiegelmeier.
Aye.
And carries. Thank you, Council. Thank you, Clerk Rocky. Council, next we move to item D, ordinances, number 1, second and third readings. Item A, ordinance 4949, considering implementing the city council's decision in CNC 25-1, declaring that certain real property be removed from the community commercial C3 zone and agricultural transitional F2 zone to the general commercial C4 zone and amending the official zoning map of the city of Lewiston. This is council. If you have questions, our assistant city planner is not here, but council. Council President Kleber.
Make a motion to dispense with the requirement that an ordinance be read on 3 different days and to combine the second and third readings.
Second.
Been moved by Council President Kleberg, seconded by Councilor Spiegelmeier, to dispense with the requirement that an ordinance be read on 3 different days and to combine the second and third readings. Those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Council President Kleberg.
Make a motion to waive the third reading in full of ordinance 4949 and approve the reading of ordinance number 4949 by title only.
Second.
Been moved by Council President Kleberg, seconded by Councilor Spiegelmeier, to waive the third reading in full of ordinance number 4949 and approve the reading of ordinance number 4949 by title only. Is there discussion or amendments? Hearing none, those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Clerk Brockie.
Approving the second and third readings of ordinance 4949, an ordinance of the city of Lewiston implementing the city council's decision in ZNC 25-1, declaring that certain real property be removed from the community commercial C3 zone and agricultural transitional F2 zone to the general commercial C4 zone, amending the official zoning map of the city of Lewiston and providing an effective date.
Thank you, Clerk Brockie. City Council. Item B, ordinance 4953, considering amending sections 2-12 sub A and 2-22 sub A of the Lewiston City Code regarding the mayor and city councilor's compensation. This is an action item. Our city attorney, Jennifer Cacano, is here tonight if you have questions for her. Otherwise, I would entertain a motion. Council President Kleber.
Make a motion to dispense with the requirement that an ordinance be read on 3 different days and to combine the second and third readings.
Second.
Moved by Council President Kleberg, seconded by Councilor Wright. Dispense with the requirement that an ordinance be read on 3 different days and to combine the second and third readings. Those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed?
Nay.
Make your amendments in the next one.
4 votes are required, and I think we have those. Council President Kleberg.
Make a motion to waive the third reading in full of ordinance 4953 and approve the reading of ordinance 4953 by title only.
Second.
Moved by Council President Kleberg, seconded by Councilor Wright, to waive the third reading in full of ordinance number 4953 and approve the reading of ordinance number 4953 by title only. Is there discussion or amendments? Council President Kleberg.
This is the time to make an amendment.
Well, I would make an amendment that we change the mayor's salary to 70,000 and leave the counselors as is.
Second.
Couldn't hear your motion, Councilor.
Bring the mayor's salary to 70,000 and leave the counselors at 700. And then I think it was 850 that the council president was at. So as it stands.
700 for the council and council president different?
There isn't currently 850. What's the council president currently?
Well, the proposal was 800, but that's fine.
750. Jennifer has it.
I forgot my scratch sheet. No, last time.
Councilor Forsman, then have mayor to 70, council to 700, and council president at 800?
750 for council president, 700 for council.
Second by Councilor Spicklemeyer. Okay. Okay, the amendment is mayor shall receive an annual salary of $70,000. Council will receive monthly salary of $700 and city council will receive monthly salary of $750. Discussion? Councilor Wright?
Can I inquire why the significant change from the 90,000 to the 70,000?
So as we've talked about in previous meetings, is leaving room to be able to have a city admin. And now we're pretty tight on budget as is, as we've seen from our budget that we just looked at, and not a lot of room to hire a very expensive city admin to be able to handle the day-to-day. And I believe that a lot of people that are going to run for mayor may not be able to just quit their job. And mayor is also considered a part-time position, and they're meeting their obligations with that. And if they were to have a city administrator to handle minute task, they're able to assign things to them, they can better allocate their time and maybe even have more time to go to Boise and advocate for the city.
Councilor Wright?
Just maybe same question for Specklemeyer, is that the 90 to 70?
I guess me, I would have rather had it, leave it status quo, way it is right now, and then wait till we had the new mayor, whoever it is in place, and work with that mayor to decide what they wanted to do with the position, whether they wanted to work on adding an administrator or, you know, go without. And then after the 2 years, if we were just going to stick with the single mayor, then we could increase the mayor's salary in 2 years when we review it again.
Council President Kleberg.
I think it'd be a real stretch to think you're gonna get somebody that's doing the workload of the mayor at a reduced salary, because we have not amended our budget to accommodate for a city administrator. I'm all for that also. But I will stay with, well, we gotta vote on this amendment, I guess, first.
Further discussion? I'm going to ask for a roll call vote on this. Clerk Rocky,
Council President Kleberg.
Nay.
Nay.
Aye. Nay.
Aye.
fails. Thank you, council. Thank you, Clerk Rocky. Councilors, are there further discussion or amendments? Council President Kleberg.
I'll go back to my proposal from the last go-around, and I would propose keeping the mayor's salary, or proposing the mayor's salary at 90,000, and keep the city councilors at the same.
Excuse me, Council President, can you clarify what you mean by keep the same? Do you mean keep?
700.
Okay. And do you also mean to remove the increased amount for the council president as well then?
700 is fine.
Was that a motion?
That was a motion.
I couldn't hear it all, sorry.
Mayor's salary at 90,000, councilor and council president at 700.
Okay, motion dies for lack of a second. Council President Speckelmeyer.
As I mentioned before, I'd like to make a motion to leave the mayor's salary and the councilor's salaries status quo, the current levels.
Second.
Moved by Councilor Speckelmeyer, second by Councilor Forsman, that the mayor shall receive an annual salary of $84,000, payable monthly, and city council compensation shall be $700 per month. For further discussion, Councilor Forsman.
Yeah, I think at least this gives the opportunity for 2 years from now, when whoever we do have fill that seat of mayor can decide if they like the idea of having a city administrator, or feel like they're doing fine without one, then we can talk about maybe an increase in the salary at that time. Kind of a window time to put some hopefully funds away maybe, or prepare for that.
Council comment, Councilor Wright.
I just don't see the difference between the 84 or the 70. I mean, I'd be fine to stay at status quo, but 84 or 90,000, and still finding room for additional staff to assist with the mayor. I mean, if we're going to do additional staff at 70, what's the difference between 84? I mean, $14,000 is the difference, but maybe we can find a good deal or something. But if we're going to do it, what I'm getting at is I think we're going to do it anyway. So I wouldn't that means we're not going to staff to help the mayor. Wanted to add that.
Councilor Forsman.
Just a clarifying question. Did you mean we're not going to get a city admin anyway, or am I misunderstanding?
No, I meant, if we're gonna get a city admin, I think we would do it either way, whether we decided on 70,000 or 84,000 or 100,000 when we come to that actual discussion.
Right.
Councilors, I need to ask you to speak up. Councilor Spicklemeyer is having a
Oh,
hard time hearing.
apologies. Sorry, am I not
Conversation.
close enough to this? I was meaning if we're at, 90,000 or 70,000 or 84,000, when we come to the actual discussion of, are we going to have a administrator in the mayor's office? That wouldn't be something that would change my mind about not having one, approving additional staff to assist in that position. So that was all I wanted to add. Like, my voting shouldn't reflect on am I in preference or not in preference of an administrator.
Councilor Spicklemeyer?
I guess to follow up with your comment or your question is that my thought around it is if it turned that the city did want to have a city administrator, if you left it as it is, then cutting it wouldn't be that big a deal. But if you gave them a raise and then you cut it back in 2 years to help fund the city administrator, because they'd be on a 4-year term and then you'd be trying to cut them back at their second year.
Right. Fine.
Councilor Wright?
Thank you. Yeah, I'm worried the flip side of that. If we say, 70,000 or 50,000, then we get to the discussion on administrator.
And we don't have one.
We don't pass it, or we don't have the money to do it or something like that. And then we can't go and change this for 2 years. But, yeah.
Councilor Forsman?
Yeah, I guess I would just echo a little bit of Councilor Spickelmeyer's comment. I just, obviously you're gonna have to have the money in order to hire a position that is typically very high paying. And so I figured this gave us a little bit of a cushion to be able to do that. But obviously, yeah, being the concern, but ultimately, it's, if I'm correct, and correct me if I'm wrong there, but the city administrator position would not be a decision that is made by the council. It is by the mayor and whether they would want to have that position.
Councilor, the mayor is the chief administrative official for the city. You can't force the mayor to hire that position. The mayor would have to make that decision. Certainly provide funding for a position.
So to, I guess, reiterate my point, I guess I thought at 2 years, if that mayor decides, I don't want to have a city administrator, it is not needed, then us as a council can decide, well, we don't need the monies we were thinking, and we can go a higher salary to accommodate for the extra work that. But unfortunately, if we had a crystal ball that we could know, right, well, who's going to be in that seat, what are we doing, and then it would be a lot easier to make these decisions. But we're preemptively planning and hope, kind of leaving variables open so that we can try to adapt to the time when that time comes.
Mm-hmm.
Makes it kind of hard.
Council, if there's no further discussion, I will ask Clerk Brock again to call the roll.
That's my better judgment. I'll vote aye.
Counselor Wright,
Aye.
Counselor Forsman,
Aye.
Counselor Klein. Aye. Counselor Spickelmeyer.
Aye.
Carries. Now we'll go back to the main motion to waive the third reading in full of ordinance number 4953 and approve the reading of ordinance number 4953 by title only. Voice vote. Those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Thank you, council. Clerk Brocky.
Mayor, City Attorney Jennifer Tangano, I'm just pointing out that with there being no changes to the mayor's compensation, the title will have to be amended to take that portion out. So if you would permit just a moment, and I will provide the city clerk with an amended title, and that is what we can adopt And the same thing for the ordinance summary will have to be amended to reflect the change, because you're not amending the compensation. Actually, there's going to be no ordinance would be needed. Because if you leave the compensation of the mayor at $84,000, that's currently what is in city code, and you leave the compensation for the city council at $700 with no council president premium, there's also not a requirement to amend city code in that section either. So the city council won't need to actually approve an ordinance because the city code would be remaining the same.
Jennifer, if I can ask a question. The council's required to set compensation every 2 years by Idaho statute. So even if the numbers don't change, do they still have to have an affirmative decision to set that salary?
They can have a decision, but it's not actually going to result to any amendments in city code. So with the amendment now, what we would do is we would propose there not to be an approval of the new ordinance because there are no actual changes, but we can reflect in the amendments that it's the decision of the city council to amend what was supposed to be the ordinance, and ultimately the effect of that amendment keeps the city code at the status quo. So we're not changing city code, but the city council has amended what was originally proposed to maintain what's currently in city code.
Would you like to go at ease for 5 minutes so we can get this completed and then we'll
Yes, that would
get on
be
with our
helpful.
business? Okay, well, council will be at ease. to order. Prior to going at ease, we were discussing ordinance number 4953. Council President Kleberg.
Mr. Mayor, make a motion as a result of amendments to ordinance 4953, make a motion to affirm mayor and city councilors' compensation as set forth currently in Lewiston City Code.
Second.
It's been moved by Council President Kleberg, second by Councilor Forsman, that as a result of amendments to ordinance 4953, motion to affirm mayor and city councilors' compensation is set forth currently in Lewiston City Code. Favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Carries. Thank you, council. We will next move to item number 2, adoption approval of ordinance summaries. Item A, ordinance 4949.
That was,
Councilors, I would entertain a motion.
Mayor?
Councilor Spickelmeyer,
Motion to adopt ordinance number 4949 and approve the related ordinance summary.
it's been moved by Councilor Spickelmeyer, second by Councilor Forsman to adopt ordinance number 4949 and approve the related ordinance summary. Clerk Brocky.
Council President Kleberg,
aye.
Councilor Wright,
Aye.
Councilor Forsman,
Aye.
Councilor Klein. Aye. Councilor Spickelmeyer.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you, council. Language.
4953.
Mayor, we will not need approval or adoption of ordinance 4953.
Do anything with that? Okay, I was going to be creative here. Thank you. Council, we are going to pass over for the record here, Roman numeral 7 active agenda.
Now we're on E, reason statement.
B, yes, we're going to bypass over the B, but now we're going to go to E. But I was just making for the record that we're going to bypass that item on your agenda.
Got it.
We'll now move to item E, reason statement of relevant criteria and standards for ZNC 25-1. Considering approving the reason statement for ZNC 25-1, a request by Steve Carlton to rezone a 7.24 acre parcel at 805 Stewart Avenue from community commercial C3 zone and agricultural transitional F2 zone to general commercial C4 zone. This is an action item.
Mayor,
Councilor Forsman?
motion to approve the reason statement for ZNC 25-1.
Second.
Been moved by Councilor Forsman, second by Councilor Spickelmeyer to approve the reason statement NC 25-1 as written. Discussion? Clerk Brocky, please call the roll on that for me.
Kleberg,
Aye.
Councilor Wright,
Aye.
Councilor Forsman.
Aye.
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 Clerk Brocky, thank you, councilors. Next, we'll move to Roman numeral 9, unfinished and new business. Item A, city councilor comments. Comments shall not be related to an item currently before the city council or an item that may come before the city council in the foreseeable future and shall be limited to comments, not discussion.
Mayor.
Councilor Forsman.
I will be out of town the August 18th meeting. I did request a Zoom link in hopes that I can Zoom in. So I will do my best to do that. Stay cool out there. It's getting hot. Hot August nights is coming.
Board and commission liaison updates, councilors.
Mayor.
Councilor Forsman.
So we have our Public Works meeting. We haven't had it yet, so it will be a Thursday, the 28th at 12 to 1 at 215 B Street, Bell Building. So I'll have an update on that one. This isn't really a boards and commission, but the Port of Lewiston is doing a ribbon cutting tomorrow at 10 a.m. Exciting. Oh, and I did participate in Parks and Recs interviews for some commission openings that they have. I feel like they went really well, and I was glad to be a part of it.
Your council comments on the liaison updates, Councilor Wright?
Yeah, the Disability Advisory Commission is going to be in a few days. So next meeting, I should have some.
Oh, Mayor. Sorry, I did forget one.
Councilor Forsman?
Sorry. Historic Preservation told me that they had a commissioner resign, so they'll be advertising a new position for the Historic Preservation Committee. If anybody is interested, or please share that. Sorry, I forgot about that. Almost forgot.
Comments? Any more comments? Okay, Mayor. Mention the port dedication tomorrow. You have that. Agenda topics, item D, Roman numeral 9D. Roman numeral 10, adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
It's been moved by Councilor Forsman, second by Council President Kleber to adjourn. Those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you, council.